All right, we're learning the Mimor in Tuf Shin Beit by the previous Lubavitcher Rebbe that was said in 1942. The Rebbe was already in America, and the Mimor is entitled BaChodesh HaShlishi, on the third month. It's talking about the giving of the Torah, and the Rebbe is asking what really was accomplished by giving the Torah. The Torah already was in the world. It says that Abraham knew about the Torah. Even more, Abraham. Oh, let me get this. There we go. Have to be user friendly here. Abraham knew about the whole Torah, and in fact, he served God. Abraham served God way before the Torah was given. Abraham lived about 400 years before the Torah was given, a little more. So, what do we really need the Torah for? Now the Rebbe is explaining what exactly was the service of Abraham. So the Rebbe says we can see, generally, from the fact that Abraham, it said he built two altars to God. One altar, it says, that he built to the God that appeared to him, and the other one said they just built it to God, without any descriptions. The Rebbe said, really, this is the two aspects of God. One aspect of God is the God that appeared to him, namely, how we can see God from the world. That God is the creator. That's called the lower name of God. And then we see that God is much above that, that he creates things that we can't possibly understand. And that's called the upper name of God. And it says even to the degree that Abraham served Hashem in this world in a way that was even better than what Hashem himself did. According to Chassidut, first of all, according to the Torah and Midrash, there's a lot of reasons given why God created the world. Chassidut always takes the idea that God created the world so that we can make God dwell here. Dir b'tachtonim. And that, of course, Abraham revealed. But what does it mean, make a dir b'tachtonim? The lowest thing that can possibly be is a human being. Why? Because a human being has the potential to go against God. Abraham realized this, and so his whole work, his whole life, was just to try to get people, human beings, to realize that there is God. That God should be recognized. But that's the reason God created the world. He created the world so that he should be recognized. So who do you think is doing a better job making God recognized? God himself or Abraham? So I figure, what type of a contest is this? It's a very lopsided contest. Abraham obviously can't do as good a job as God can, right? God creates the world. He can do anything. So he says, no, it's not so. Abraham replaced God's kindness in the world. Abraham was better at advertising God than God himself was. In the Midrash, it says that the attribute of kindness, midat chesed, complained in front of God and said, since Abraham was created, as I have nothing to do here in the world. This is why, because Abraham used his free will to serve God. Good morning. Abraham served God from free will, which is not the case in the upper worlds. There's no free will. God does whatever he wants to. There's no obstacles, there's no difficulties, there's no temptations, there's no confusion, there's no choices to be made. God reveals himself. That's it. That's called God's kindness. But Abraham's kindness is Abraham had to use his own free will. Says the Rebbe even more. And this is what we're going to get into now. I'm just making a review, a summary of what we learned. Rebbe says even more. The aspect of God's kindness sometimes gets exactly the opposite results of what God wants. What does that mean? When God gives kindness to the world, so it means he gives kindness to everybody. He creates everyone. He creates evil people. He creates good people. They're all being created. God keeps them alive. A person does a sin, he doesn't all of a sudden, ground opens up or he just disappears, God stops creating him. No, God creates everyone else. That's God's infinite kindness, infinite love, goodness. Right? That's pretty good. He says, yeah, it's pretty good, but the results are sometimes really bad. And namely, when a person does bad things and he succeeds and he sees that he's still alive, so he says, what do I need this Torah and this mitzvahs for? I'm succeeding. I'm doing a good job. And here I feel good. Those religious people, they always have to control themselves and hold themselves back, and they can't do what they want to. That's what type of a life is that? I'm just doing whatever I want. Right? I do it my way, anything I want to do, and I'm succeeding. And that's really the way that God creates the world, in such a way that a person can do all sorts of sins and he can succeed. And on the other hand, we see that there's a lot of righteous people that they don't succeed so much, that there's difficulties, the Holocaust and inquisitions and all sorts of terrible things that happen. So we can see sometimes, like it says in Pirkei Avos, it's not in our ability to understand not the success of the evil people or the suffering of the righteous people. We don't understand. So let's not talk about the suffering part of it. Let's just talk about the positive part of it. The people do sins and they succeed. And the Rebbe is going to go into this now. It says Abraham wasn't that way. Abraham, he would do good to people. He was kind, and he did it from his own free will. But on the other hand, he forced people to recognize that it was all coming from God. Forced people. So Abraham, he was better, so to speak. His kindness was better than God's kindness. We are now on Gimel. Very good, Gimel. Zeu, and this is Shegadla, that it was greater. Mirat Chesed Avram, the kindness of Abraham, Abraham's aspect of kindness was greater. The Gabi Mirat Chesed, more than the kindness of Atzilut. Atzilut is another name for God, the revelation of God. Abraham's kindness was better than God's kindness. The Levad Zot, and not only that, Mash and Mirat Chesed, that the aspect of this Chesed of Atzilut, who or Netzal, is what we call a light of God, but it was an emanation of God. Mirata Chesed Avram, and the aspect of the kindness of Abraham is Koach, it's a power. The Madregat Neshama, it comes from the soul. Which is higher? The Jewish soul, or what we call the aspects of God? Says the Rebbe, Chesed Atzilus, this kindness of Atzilut, this is, I'm sorry, the Neshama. The Neshama, the third line. The Neshama is above Mina Etzalim Shalamayla. The Jewish soul and its root is higher than this higher level, even the level of Atzilut, all the godly emanations that are from, that are coming from God. All these godly emanations it's godly, it's infinite, but it's not as high as the Jewish soul. So Abraham, by using his free will, he touched on the essence of the Jewish soul. It's a higher source. It's a higher source, so to speak, than the kindness that God reveals from this world of Atzilut. Hine levadzo. Not only that, Hari hashpa the chesed Atzilut, this giving over of this kindness of God, kishahaya gam l'roim, it comes also to the evil people. Hine lozu bilvad. Not only that, shehashpa ino poelet bahem, that it does not have an effect on them, the intended effect on them. Like we say, why did God create the world? So that everyone in the world will recognize God. And what happens by God giving kindness? That's one of the aspects of God, recognizing God is infinitely kind. By God showing his infinite kindness to the world, that has exactly the opposite effect. Liot Eino poelet bohem liot tov. It doesn't affect these people that they should become better. Ela adarabba, but exactly the opposite. Goremet lahem yerida Rahman Islan. It causes them a big descent. Midechi el dechi, getting worse and worse. Right? It's almost like, say, take all the criminals that are in the jails, and then the mayor of the town or whatever, the governor says, listen, we realize that the reason you did all these bad things was because you're antisocial, that you think everybody hates you, you think the world is evil, and you just want to repay evil with evil. You want to get them before they get you. Well, I want to show you it's not so. The world is really a good place. And just to prove it, I'm freeing all of you. I'm freeing all of you, and I give everybody $10,000 to show that man is really good. The world is good. Life is good. What's going to happen? What's happening now? That's what's going to happen. Like we can see clearly, but Tuvia b'nei Adam, and the nature of people. The kasher mitparnasim, that when people make a livelihood, but tzimtzum, very, how do you say, in a very small way, right? They don't make much of a living. They have to work hard and not make much money. Oh, afilu berevach, or even if people make money, they do make money, but lefi erkam, it's according to their level, their ability. Hine as shomrim Torah b'mitzvos. Then we see the Jews, they do Torah and they do the commandments. They realize that what they have is either an amazing gift, or they realize that the little bit that they have is sufficient. The physical is not the main thing. Umidnagim, then they act properly. Banhagatova, liyod b'seviva shel b'nei Torah, and they're in the way. They'll try to be near Torah people and Yirat Elokim, and people that fear God. Now you have to realize the Rebbe is saying this in America. America was a very big problem. If you compare the Jews in America to the Jews, let's say, in Europe and Russia, so the Jews in America and Russia, generally speaking, they didn't have that much money. They weren't that good off. And the ones that did have a lot of money, that they were good off, is a lot of times it caused them, how do you say, to be distant a little bit from God. But when they came to America, then for sure, they came to America and they realized that if they they worked on Shabbos, they would make more money. And they did. And it worked. And that if they didn't work on Shabbos, then there's a lot of jobs that they wouldn't get hired at. So what are they supposed to do? And if they want to keep kosher, they have to go far away to find a good kosher butcher, to find a good. It's not easy. You have to pay money. So the people that have a little bit of money, or at least what they give, the money that they earn it according to their ability, according to this. So they managed. They had families of 5 children, 10 children. And the families that they threw off Torah and mitzvahs, they threw it off. So they had families of 2 children. That's enough. But they lived good. They had nice big houses. They got along with everybody else. Right? There was huge reform synagogues with this. So we see that sometimes the more plenty that a person has, and exactly the opposite, the plenty of America, that's what said America is different. People said America is different. If you take the same Jew and you give him a lot of money, ba'ashirus, harchava, hene az midrachkim misviva shel b'nei Torah, then they keep away from people who learn Torah. V'yirei Elokim. It says v'tafesh libam, and their v'tafesh kechelev libam, their hearts become covered like with fat. Umitrachkim, and they umitkarvim lekofrim uporkim. I think this is a mistaken spelling. Uporkim. They came close to those people who deny God and cast off in a yoke. They do what they want. Mizman zaman yordim. They go down Rahman Islam dechi el dechi to lower and lower levels. I'll tell you a joke. That there were 2, how money affects a person. There were 2 friends, Jewish guys, old Jewish guys. They lived where in the Bronx, and they bought together a lottery ticket. The way that it worked was that they would make the lottery in the nighttime, then would publish the number in the morning. Well, it happened to be that they made the lottery in the nighttime, and one of these 2 friends, one was Yankel and the other one was Moshe, the 2 old men. So Yankel had a friend that worked in the lottery, and he gave him the number that he bought. He said, listen, if this number comes up, do me a favor, call me up. So sure enough, 2 o'clock in the morning, Yankel gets a phone call, wakes up, it's his friend from the lottery office, and he says, Yankel, you got good news. Well, I don't believe it, really. You're choking me. He says, no, listen, I can't talk loud. You won. Your number was just called. Wow, how much is it? He says, how much is it? Get ready. He says, $60 million. Wow, $60 million. That's really great. Thanks a lot. Hangs up the phone. Yankel puts on his pants over his pajamas, runs to Moshe's house, 3 o'clock in the morning, knocks on his door. Moshe, wake up. Moshe opens up the door, right? He's still in his pajamas. Yankel, what happened? What do you want? Yankel says, listen, Moshe, you won't believe it. We won $60 million. We won the lottery. $60 million. I get 30, you get 30, $30 million. Moshe says, listen, get out of here or I'll call the police. If you bother me again, I'm going to have you put in jail. Yankel says to Moshe, what happened? What are you yelling at me like that? What are you saying? He says, mainly you come and you wake up a person at 3 o'clock in the morning, a regular person, but I'm a millionaire. What are you waking me up at 3 o'clock in the morning for? In other words, he just heard that he has all this money. All of a sudden, his whole being just changed. Oh, it's a joke, but the fact is a joke based on fact. A person gets money, he gets crazy. Says the Rebbe, where's the money come from? It comes from God. And sometimes a person gets money and he can go from level lower and lower and lower. Success sometimes drives people crazy. First of all, the person, he's a religious person. He starts out good, but then he gets a little bit easy, right? He starts to think, right, maybe I'm the boss. First of all, he starts to be not to be so careful, starts to be not so careful in the customs, the isur v'heter, and things that are forbidden, permissible. And then he starts to look for leniencies, things that to be lenient. You have to have a long beard. You have to wear your tzitzis. You have to have tzitzis, maybe, Then he starts to praying, starts to be a little bit shorter in the mornings, a little bit shorter. And then he can come down to the point where he actually does forbidden things, looks at forbidden things, listens to. First of all, it's sort of like, accidental, just for a couple seconds. Until a person finally says, listen, I realize I can do what I want to and nothing happens to me. You know what? Maybe this whole thing is a big bluff. And suddenly he starts to become, chutzpah. And he can transgress on really forbidden things. And the person suddenly becomes an ingrate to Hashem, l'makom, to God. And he's saying, 1 second, I didn't win this because God blessed me. Somebody has to win. So it happened to be me. And you know what? The reason I won, because I deserve it. My power, my hand, made me all this success. I remember it was maybe the ultimate terrible example was in the 6-Day War. The 6-Day War, everybody saw, the whole world saw. I was not even religious back then, but I remember what happened, and I was in retrospect. I was told, so the whole world went upside down. When the Jews won the 6-Day War, everybody, it was just everywhere. All the Arabs, they were just going crazy. And the Jews, on the other hand, instead of saying, listen, it's a great miracle from God, everyone was saying it's a great miracle from God, and the Jews are the people of God, and we see the Lord help them. And it was impossible that such a small nation should win. And the Jews said, no, it was not from God. It was, first of all, we're not really a conquering nation. We'll give everything back. And second of all, it was our Air Force. We had a really, really good Air Force, and our backs were to the wall. And, that's what happens when et cetera, and et cetera, and et cetera, until finally they just took all the excitement out because they won. They won. If God forbidden, they wouldn't have won. So then we cried out to God, help us. So sometimes when God gives good things, as people take it in exactly the wrong way. They say that my power, it made me all this success. And they become very haughty with their riches and their success. That they put against heaven their mouths, to speak on very, very high things, in matters that they have no intention whatsoever. Remember when they had in Israel, they passed this law of who was a Jew. So they passed a law that anybody can be a Jew. If a Reform rabbi says you're a Jew, if your father says if your father was a Jew, you're a Jew. Anybody can be a Jew. Anybody, you have a, and the Rebbe, I remember the Rebbe said they're making war against God. They're making war against God himself. And that's what it was, because they were successful and they could do what they wanted. So therefore they could, says the Rebbe, ki anashim pshutim hema, because the fact of the matter is when it comes to matters of Judaism, they are very simple people. I mean, a doctor that knew as much about Judaism as these people know, a doctor that knows as little about medicine as these people know about Judaism, you would never go to a doctor like that. He would lose his license. But these people, they don't have to know anything. Everybody's an expert about Judaism. Everybody is an expert. You don't have to know anything. You don't have to read any books. I know I'm a Jew also. I'm also a Jew. A Jew, I should know. And what's the proof? Here I am. I'm talking. If I'm talking, it means that I must know what I am. And I'm a Jew. It says, really, the fact of the matter is these people have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, they're not guilty. You can't hold a person guilty. He thinks that this is really right, that every Jew has a right to say whatever he wants to. And he can say whatever he wants to about Judaism. He would never open up his mouth about medicine or about the nuclear science, nuclear physics. It would never open, doesn't know anything about it. But Judaism, doesn't know anything, talks about, he's a big expert, he can philosophize, he write books about it. Asher and binos them, people, they have no understanding whatsoever. The previous Rebbe, when he came to America, that was the situation. Reform Judaism was very strong, and these people, they didn't know Shabbos, no tefillin, okay, a person doesn't want to keep Shabbos, I can understand, but this is Judaism, making a claim that this is the way it's supposed to be. Right? If a person could say, okay, you do what you want, I'll do what I want. No, what I'm doing is right. You want to live in the dark, live in the dark. So it says the Rebbe, why? Because of success. This is all comes from God's kindness. They don't realize that it's only because of God's blessing and that God's divine, intention that they became rich. These people can be very wise in their own eyes. They can go in the free heart and have pleasure in all the things in the world. Like an animal that does whatever he wants to. And only matters of the physical. An imaginary, importance and honor. And these people, it doesn't come up in their mind at all. I should call Oshram me'afahu, that all of their riches that they have are really made of nothing. I should bin layla yaverakol. One night, everything can be lost. Without remaining anything. And these people saw that that's what happened in Nazi Germany, Hashem Yishmor. Right? A person today was rich, all of a sudden the next day he didn't have anything. He was fighting for his life, trying to do anything to get out of the place, right? Just to leave all his riches behind, right? Get out as fast as he can, to run away from everything that he has, and people didn't succeed. So people, you can see that, good, it's wonderful to be rich, and everyone's supposed to be rich, but don't think you can be rich, but the riches shouldn't own you. You have to own the riches. What is the you? The you is a Jew. The Rebbe said everyone's supposed to be rich. So therefore, the kindness of God can have the exact opposite effect that God wants, which is not the case. Avram, the that even though Shagam, he must be a tov, that Abraham did good even to the evil people, Kamola Tovim, and God, and Abraham also was self-sacrificing, Nafshem Mamish, Litpalel Be'adaroim, and he was self-sacrificing to even pray for the evil people, for the bad people, and the sinners of Sodom V'Amorah. Remember the story of Sodom V'Amorah? Maybe there's 50 people, maybe there's 40. Please God, maybe there's 45, maybe it was 40. Please God, save Sodom. And the Sodom and Amorah was really bad news. I mean, these people were really, sadistic people, that they were the murderers. And nevertheless, Abraham prayed for them. Said, maybe, listen, God, there's a couple of tzaddikim. Maybe they can, these people are doing what they're doing because they're unaware. They've been swept away. Really, everybody in essence is good. That's what Abraham was saying. And he prayed for the evil people. In the end, there was no hope for them. הנה אם זה הרי גוף ועצם השפוע חסד נותן כוח ועוז בהרועים אשר הם עצמם יהפכו להיות טובים. But Abraham, he did good to the bad people. He gave them food, but that was in order to inspire them to change their ways and to do good. We see this something similar like this to the Rebbe. There's a lot of well-known stories. If somebody came by the Rebbe, this is the father of Simon Jacobson. He was the Gershon Ber Jacobson. He brought some big communist writer. I think I told the story. The man was a leftist, communist, anti-religious, and he brought him in front of the Rebbe because he told him the Rebbe is an interesting person. And he went in front of the Rebbe, and he saw, I told you this story before. In any case, the Rebbe said, I read your column. And he said, what? He said, yes, you're an excellent writer. You're really an excellent writer. He said, you read my column? I write exactly the opposite of what you think. And the Rebbe said, listen, if I would read only what I think, people that agree with what I think, I would read very little. And the Rebbe treated him nicely. And he didn't say, listen, you better put on tefillin, you're going to burn in hell. He treated him nicely. And it said that it had an effect on the person. The person didn't change, but he changed his whole attitude toward God and toward Judaism and toward Hashem. I think we have to remember one very important point. And the point we have to remember is that the reason that we are religious, that we believe in God, is because God really does exist. That's the fact. And God really, you can believe in him or not. You have your, it's like, believing you have a grandmother or not, but you have a grandmother. You can believe in God or not, but the fact is that God really does exist. The fact is that God is really creating us. That's the fact. And the fact is that God is giving us the biggest gift of all, and that's responsibility. That's the fact. God is not just some person sitting up in the sky. And God really does care what we do, and God really does react to what we do. And that's what Abraham realized. He realized this fact. Okay, now the question though is how did Abraham know what to do? That's the Torah. And the Torah was only given 400 years after Abraham. It says that Abraham realized it before the Torah was given. He was so devoted that God revealed to him what you're supposed to do with your arms, with your legs, with your this, how you're supposed to treat other people. Shekol Zeh, that Abraham's main thing was to do good to people in order to change them, to make them realize the fact that they're creations and that they have an obligation, or if you want to call it an obligation, they have an opportunity to be partners with their creator. Shekol Zeh, that all that Abraham did, good to people, Hu lifi she'avodat Avram, because the service of Avram was latik at atzmo mikolin negashmit, that Abraham removed himself from any physical or personal considerations, v'lasotam mirkav le'elokut, and to make the whole world a vessel for godliness. In other words, instead of doing with the world what he wanted, he did with the world what God wants. That's the main thing here, is the world. How important this physical world is, to do with this physical world and use it in a happy and a blessed and a holy way. That's what Abraham realized. He was the first person to realize this. That's what it says, that's what it says, that Abraham went up from Egypt, because Abraham, that Abraham went up from Egypt. The word from Egypt means limitations. That Abraham, he moved up. He moved his consciousness away from all the limitations of the world, all the selfish considerations of this world, and also the selfish considerations of the spiritual world. Avram Avinu, he removed himself from any selfish considerations of this world, even though the fact is that nature, that the creation of this world is godliness. Avahu elokus hamustar. But the world, true, it's a creation, and everything in the creation is there for a purpose, and that purpose is called godliness. And this godliness is there in everything in the world, but it's concealed. That God, so to speak, clothed himself and concealed himself in nature. For Avram, he's skilled, but Avram contemplated and he realized, lahakir at the emet, to reveal and recognize the truth. Shehateva, that nature, very good, we're on the top of the page, teva, that nature itself, hu elokus, that nature itself is godliness, and that God has a plan for nature. It's not just you can do whatever your nature is and say that this is what God wants. God has a plan. There's something deeper hidden inside of the world, inside of nature. Nature is godliness. Abraham was the first to realize this. Then God revealed himself to him. And then Abraham went from level to level. Now, this is also a thing that happens to us also, is that if a person really devotes himself to the truth, as Hashem helps him. And so it was also with Abraham. That Abraham devoted himself so much to the truth that Hashem helped him. And Hashem revealed himself to him. And this goes to each and every one of us in our personal lives. Hashem cares about us individually. A person shouldn't say, who am I? What do you mean, who am I? First of all, you're a human being. And God helps every human being. Racham aval kol masov. But even more, you're a Jew. A Jew is not, in addition to being a human being, is every Jew is the son of God. Son of God. God really cares. So we shouldn't be nervous, and we shouldn't be anxious, and we shouldn't be depressed. God is with us. But what? We have to open ourselves to him. And that's what Abraham did. Abraham realized that the whole world has a purpose to it. And he realized that in order to realize this purpose, he had to devote himself to the purpose, devote himself to God. And then God revealed himself and told him what he wanted him to do. And then finally, Abraham built an altar, L'Hashem Nireh, to this God that appeared to him. It was because of his work as God reacted and appeared to him. And so it will be to us. But Abraham, this altar, this revelation that Abraham got, so Abraham built what's called an altar to this aspect of God that appeared to him. Namely, Shu Makar La'olmim Diskalim, the source of all the revealed worlds. All this amazing world, Abraham realized it's all here for a purpose. Bezui Elias Avram, that's what it means that Avram went from Egypt. Al Yedei Yetzia Mea Mitzrayim, Avram left Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim means the limitations, the limited outlook that people have in the world, the selfish outlook that people have in the world. The Gavulim de'inyanei olam hazeh, liot haloch v'naso anegba. That Avram, it said that he traveled to the south. Shehu Sfirat HaChesed, this is adding in the aspect of God's kindness, embodying God's kindness and love. Yadua, and it's known that Chesed, this aspect of Chesed, of love, he who is Sheruta da Alma Ilah. The word Sheruta means two things. It means service, and it also means the beginning. Love is the beginning and the service of the upper worlds. Amika utamira, which is deep and concealed, ad raza de Ein Sof, to the secret of Ein Sof. Pirish, what does it mean? Al mi'ilam. What does it mean that chesed, that love is the door that opens up the upper worlds? When it says that it's the door that opens up to the upper worlds, just give me one moment, please. I just want one moment break. Okay, love. Love, it says that love, here it says chesed. Chesed is God's love, God's kindness, but God's love. Love is the beginning of the service of the upper Sheruta, the Almi Eloah, of the upper world, which is deep and hidden. Until the secret of Ein Sof. What is this upper world? This is talking the language of the Zohar. What does it mean, the upper world? Love is the door to the upper world. This is what's called Sfirat HaBina. This is what is called the aspect of God's Bina, which is understanding. The Sfirot HaChesed and Sfirat HaBina. That's what's called the upper world. Sfirat HaChesed, this aspect of God's love, Even though it is, I'll explain all this. Even though it is what's called the 6 directions of Zir Anpin, of God's small faces. This is the first shemekabelet, that it receives me'alma iloa, from the upper worlds. Okay, shiruta means the beginning, and it also means the service. Well, let's see. Let's look at first of all, the 10 sfirot. The 10 sfirot of God. In general, it's like a human body. God made man in his image. Man has a head and a body. Personality-wise, we have intellect and we have emotions. The intellect is more in the head, and the emotions are more in the heart, in the body. So it explains. The head is, generally speaking, Chachma, Bina, Dad, or Keter, Chachma, and Bina. It doesn't make any difference. We'll not discuss why now. The Keter, Chachma, and Bina, right? What's it called? The crown, and God's wisdom, and God's understanding. Now, these are God's aspects. These are God. So really, we don't understand really what we're talking about here. But because we have these aspects and we're created in God's image, so a little bit we can sort of get a handle on this. And that's what's called Jacob's ladder, going from below to above. All these sfirot and these ideas that we are created in God's image, and so from ourselves we can sort of have a little bit of an idea what it means, God's kindness and God's power and God. That's the ladder that goes up. Okay. And so all these emotions of God, that's a lower. God also has emotions. God's emotions, that begins with love. Coming down from the top. Begins with love, then there's power, and there's beauty, love. Where does this come from? It comes from God's intellect. Same thing like with us. Right? What our intellect gives birth to our emotions. Right? I tell you here, I'm giving you a present. It's a diamond worth $2 million. Oh, you get excited. Somebody comes up to you and says, that diamond is a fake. Well, now you're not excited about it. Somebody overcomes and says, that guy who told you the diamond is a fake, he is a fake. The diamond is really worth money. You get excited. In other words, it's all going on in your mind, but however is in your mind, that's what your heart gets excited about. So the mind controls the emotion. Same is by God. The upper worlds by God, the hidden worlds, that's what's called God's intellect. Intellect. Especially that's the Torah, intellect. The worlds, that's more God's emotions. That's why God created the world in 6 days. That corresponds to the 6 emotions, and Malchut is like Shabbat. 6 days. Okay, let's go back again. Abraham replaced God's kindness. Abraham replaced God's kindness in this world. God's kindness did not convince anybody that God exists. Abraham's kindness did convince people that God exists. So that's what it's called, the beginning of the upper worlds, deep and concealed, until the secret of Ein Sof. What is this upper world? The upper world is the world Bina. That's God's understanding. Chesed, which is God's love. Even though it's one of the emotions, Zer Anpin is another name for God's emotions, small faces. Of God's emotions, even though it's the top of the, it's one of the aspects of God's emotions, but nevertheless, and the emotions are far from God's intellect, but because it is the highest of the emotions of God, mekabelet mi'alma iloah. Therefore, love receives from the upper worlds. Love, this is the emotion of love by God, and also the emotion of love from us, especially loving God or loving people or loving the world because God loves the world. This is the beginning of the lower worlds, and this is the connection to the upper worlds. Therefore, it receives from the upper worlds, Bina, Keri'ita bezoar, like it says in the Zohar, It melech le'ela, there is a king from above, Raza the Kodesh Kadoshim, which is the secret of the Holy of Holies. The Kohen Mishamesh Tatoi. There's a king, and then there's the priest that serves under the king. Who is the priest? The priest is Raza the Or Kadma, The king is God. The priest is a secret of what's called the primordial light, the light that comes out. Kadoshim, this idea of the Holy of Holies, and this is the aspect of Bina, like we said, God's intellect. Or Kadma, this first light that comes out, this is the spirit of Chesed, this is the aspect of God's kindness, love. So it was the first emotion to emanate from God's essence, Chachma and Bina, is love. That's God is the king, and the Kohen, the priest, in this case we're talking about, is God's love. Because the Kohen, the priest, in Judaism, the Kohen, what's the idea of the priest in Judaism? In Judaism, the main thing of the priest was, true, they made the sacrifices, but the main thing of the priest was to bless. To bless. And the blessing that they give, if you've ever seen, the Kohanim, it's a commandment for the Kohanim to bless the people. And on a commandment, you make a blessing. So they make a blessing before they bless the people. They make a blessing. Now, we have sometimes every prayer, especially the morning prayer. There is the blessing of the Kohanim. Kohan, if he wants to, he can go up in front of everybody and can bless them. Before he does, he makes a blessing. He makes a blessing on the blessing that he makes. What's the blessing that he makes? Baruch atah Hashem, Elokeinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'kedushato shel Aaron. Thank you, God, you, the King of the universe, that you made us holy. Kohen is saying this, with the holiness of Aaron. And you commanded us to bless the Jewish people with love. You command us to bless your people with love. The Kohen's main thing is love. Mishamish b'kodshei kadoshim. So therefore, this aspect of God's love, which comes through the Kohanim, this is the first revelation of God's intellect, which another name for that is the Holy of Holies. Lochi, and therefore, Nikra Sheruta, the Alma Diloa, therefore it is called the beginning and also the service of the upper worlds. The Al Yadei Shirut, by means of the service that the Kohen does, loving people, Nimshechet Hashpa Mi'al Mi'aloah, it brings a blessing from the upper worlds. We say, Samoa Shemiel Ben Israel Va'ani Avorachem. It says, the Kohanim, they put my name on the Jewish people, and God said, and then I will bless them. Some means I just bless the Kohanim, they'll bless the people, but I will bless them. The Al Yadei Hamshachazu, the by means of the Kohanim, blessing the Jewish people. We're going to see that was what Abraham did. Nase kafi mahut or animshach. This draws down from the essence of the light that the Kohen himself blesses. So the Kohen blesses the people, but then God also gives an extra blessing. When the Kohanim bless, then God blesses. So that's one of the things of the Kohanim is, if God already blesses, the blessings are in God's hands. How can it be? Because the Kohen, they speed up the blessing. They make the blessing come down, but then God himself reacts. God himself. Does that make any sense? Well, it makes also no sense that God cares what we do. God feeds all the protozoas and all the bugs. This is also doesn't make any sense, but that's the fact. That's what it says. That's what it means that it says that God will divide Aaron off from everybody and make him holy of holies. Because Aaron, he's the Kohen. He's the aspect of God's love. This is the aspect that Abraham embodied. Abraham, of course, was way before Aaron. And where did Aaron serve? He served in the Holy of Holies. To draw down from there, Giloi, or reveal light in the worlds. By means of his service, the Aaron Atzmo, Aaron himself, he became to this level of Holy of Holies. He also became holy himself. So what are we saying? Let's take it in simple language. By us loving other Jews and blessing, then that changes us to be the source of the blessing that we're given. And that's what Abraham realized, that by him loving others, as he drew down the love of God for others into the Al Me'ilah, that the upper worlds actually came into this physical world. That's the whole idea of why the world was created. That was the way it was before Adam ate from the tree. The world was called Gan Eden. What does it mean, Gan Eden? We could see the truth. We could see what our human being really is. Our potential was revealed. In Al Yidei Avodah, so by means of Abraham's service, he drew down Giloi the Shiruta the Almi Eloah. He revealed the beginning of the upper worlds and also the service of the upper worlds into this physical world. And by Abraham doing it, and the same thing when we do it, when we are kind and give God's kindness to others, but on the other hand, we do it with a purpose, namely that others should realize there's a creator. Who more than Abraham himself, Nichlal b'medregazu, he himself got included in this level of chesed, of atzilut. He himself embodied the love of God in the world. But and even more, b'mayil yona, even higher than just the way it is in what's called the world of atzilut, God's revealed kindness in the world. How it is in God's essence, this world of atzilut that Abraham revealed in the world by means of the service, and that Aaron revealed in the world. After all, it's just an emanation of God. God himself has this infinite love. It's just expressed through this world of atzilut. What exactly we're talking about, I mean, this is incredible. But on the other hand, we're saying that it is God's essence. God really exists and creates all existence, creates all spiritual. This is only the lower aspect of God. Then that can reach to the higher aspect of God, to the essence of God, to reveal in the world. So Abraham revealed that he can reverse this whole chain of selfishness in the world and bring everyone back to feeling the goodness and the wonder and the amazing love of the Creator in this world. That was Abraham's job, and that's our job. And now, let's not forget that Rebbe's explaining all this, what Abraham did, just to strengthen his question. If so, what do we need the Torah for? If Abraham knew all this before the Torah was given, so why did God have to give the Torah? As we'll talk about more, God willing, tomorrow. Thank you very much.